The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Mid-Carolina Service Company.
Mid-Carolina Service Company is the first name to search for your residential or commercial HVAC needs in Lexington and surrounding areas.
Just go holler at Jason and Clint. They'll hook you up on the air conditioners, on the restaurant equipment, refrigerators, refrigeration, ice machine repair. They've been doing this for years. I know them cats forever.
Family owned and operated since 2006, they pride themselves in their quality work and customer relationships. Call 803-356-4153 or visit midcarolinaserviceco.com for a no obligation quote for service today.
The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by True Brilliance Entertainment.
True Brilliance is a production, promotions, and management company dedicated to connecting artists and producers across the Carolinas to music industry professionals.
Several of their clients have placements both domestic and internationally as a result of their services.
Are you an artist or producer looking to build meaningful relationships within the music industry? Then True Brilliance is for you. Check them out at paramilitary.com. That's spelled P-A-I-R-A military.com.
This episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Bob's. Bob's is a Columbia-based retailer of over 100 Black-owned products from 20 Black-owned businesses. Bob's offers a wide range of items from household cleaning, cosmetics, and everything in between. With every visit to Bob's, you support Black-owned businesses, giving them the opportunity to grow and establish connections with our community. Bob's is located inside the Noma warehouse at 2222 Sumter Street in Columbia, South Carolina. Visit their website, weshopbobs.com for in-store pickup or to find out more. Bob's can also be found via social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at weshopbobs. When you stop by, tell them the Hilltop Glove sent you. Bob's brings quality Black brands to the Columbia community. The Hilltop Glove Podcast is sponsored by Red Rooster Sports Bar and Grill. Red Rooster is your neighborhood bar and grill serving the best wings, burgers, and baskets in the Met.
Like the amazing food, the bar is always on tap, and there's plenty of screens to watch the big game. Red Rooster is the Midland's premier meetup spot for local car and bike clubs, fraternities, and sororities.
Staff is dedicated to accommodating all kinds of parties and events. If you're looking to catch a game, have a bite, and a drink, look no further than the Red Rooster.
Red Rooster is located at 7500 Wilson Boulevard, Columbia, South Carolina. For more information, visit redroostersportsbar.com or visit them on Facebook, Instagram at Red Rooster Sports Bar. Go where the winners go.
Welcome to the Hilltop Glove Podcast.
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 Welcome to the Hilltop Glove Podcast, where Skip and DJ And What interview guests and discuss topics such as business, current events, and pop culture. The motivational podcast for the hip-hop millennial.
Good morning and welcome to this episode of the Hilltop Glove Podcast. My name is Tamaya Allen and I will be your host today, followed by Skip. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Brittany Turnipseed. Brittany is a singer/writer based in Columbia, South Carolina. Brittany is a 2018 winner of the Apollo Theater Amateur Night Competition. So we want to welcome you, Brittany, and thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm giggling over here because of the way you pronounce my last name.
I just asked him before we started. I was like,
it's fine. It's seed, but I always say when people pronounce it speed, that's a telemarketer way. So it's okay.
Turn
Turnipseed?
Yeah, turnip seed. So like the vegetable, turnip and then seed. Mm-hmm.
Oh, why did I put the B?
No, people do it all the time. And like when I did Apollo, it was like I'm losing the name of the comedian who was like hosting that year.
Uh-huh.
I corrected him, but he would just do it on purpose. So
To be funny?
Huh?
He was doing it to be funny?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. I was doing it to be funny.
No. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So that's why I giggled about it. It's okay. Promise you I'm not offended.
Good. So you're doing pretty good this morning?
Yes, I'm doing pretty good. Just put some muffins in the oven for the little ones so they can have some breakfast. So my husband's manning the oven downstairs. All he's got to do is pull it out when it's ready. But just put some muffins in for the little ones. And so far, I'm doing okay this morning. Can't complain.
Good. So, as you know, many songwriters have different approaches when it comes to their creative process. So can you explain to us the steps you took to compose your new music, and also what kind of music influenced you as a child, and what age did you start singing?
Ooh, all of those are loaded questions, but I'll take the first one. So my process for creating new music, it really has varied over the years. I have to give a lot of credit to the guys that I work with. So I work with a regular band of musicians. My bass player is Rodney Foster. My drummer is Jarius Rich. We call him J Rich. And then my keyboard player, his name is Antonio TJ Mackey. We call him TJ for short. So over the years, I really struggled as a singer and recording and whatnot and writing. But with my guys, it's been easier. And it took me a long time to figure out that I do really well live. I perform better live. I write better live, to live instrumentation and whatnot. So that has really been a costly lesson for me. But I really learned that, live instrumentation and just being in the moment works really well for me. Now I do write as a pastime, poems and different things like that. But that's really what my creative process looks like. It's really working with my guys and, them coming up with the music and me listening through it and being able to, write what I'm feeling at the moment.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So you like working with the guys, being the only female? You get a vibe, or what's it like? You a lot of pressure?
No, it's not. It's really not a lot of pressure because Rodney, especially, so Rodney Foster, he has his own jazz trio. He does things at Shades, a Joint, plays Latin band. He does a lot of stuff. Okay. So, but I've known him all my life. We've grown up together. TJ feels like I've known him for forever, but we've known each other for a few years, and same with Rich. We have a nice tight bond. They're like my brothers. So it's really no pressure when I'm writing with them. If anything, it's trying to be serious enough to get through a session to where we're not, cracking jokes and, really working on music and not just, shooting the breeze.
Awesome.
So.
That's pretty cool. So what kind of music influenced you as a child?
Ooh, everything. My mom has been a very eclectic person when it comes to music. She would have me listening to anything from Anita Baker to Pavarotti to just all kind of stuff. She never limited what she played. Now, she did go through a little phase where she got super saved at one point, and all I could listen to was gospel music. But everything, really impacted my musical taste. And really high school, working with Mr. Lyles, about to mess up his name, Mr. Lyles and Miss Cleveland, my chorus teacher, just being on the jazz band and being in chorus, all of that really impacted my musical taste and just where I pull from, each of those little places when I'm creating and writing. Okay,
cool. So you're actually from Columbia, South Carolina?
Oh, yes. Columbia's home for me.
So what high school did you attend?
Keenan, the best high school in the land.
And what age did you actually start singing? Do you remember?
Lord, my mama said I've been making noise all my life, to be honest. So she has a story that she tells about me. Like I'm about to show my age and show that I'm a true Colombian native. So we used to have a store in Colombia called Sears Surplus that was like off of Busher. It was like I guess like what you would call like a Ross or somewhere now where you like all the like leftover stuff go. And she said you would be singing in that store so loud. And she said you found an accordion. And she was like, you screamed to the top of your lungs to get that darn accordion. And she was like, the manager just was like, ma'am, let her have it. He was like, she gonna be singing in the future. Just count it a blessing. So my mom says I've been making noise all my life, and I see it in my kids as well. So I think if one of the two of them is going to end up being a singer, because they are, especially my daughter, she's a noisemaker. So,
okay. You have a son and a daughter.
Yes, I have 2 kids. Yeah, they are back to back. I lost my mind, and it wasn't intentional, but I lost my whole mind and had them kids back to back. I have a 2.5-year-old, and he just turned 8 months.
Wow, Skip, we was just talking about that, weren't we?
Yes. We were just talking about that. Yeah, I have my daughter. She was up here wilding out just a few minutes ago before we got this call.
Well, I'm praising God, and I'm just gonna say, since we at home recording, if you hear, something in the background, it's them. It's them. Right now they quiet.
Oh, it's cool. That's the whole point of why we're here. Like that's the whole meaning of the podcast. Mm-hmm. Like so, trust me. Every now and then we know.
As long as you feel comfortable, if they make an appearance, it's okay.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So to talk about the Apollo, Amateur Night at the Apollo Theater premiered in 1934. Since then, the legendary theater has launched careers for many iconic artists such as Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, and Lauryn Hill, and continues to maintain its position as the nation's most popular arena for emerging and established African-American artists. What are some highlights from your Apollo Theater experience in 2018, and what kind of impact did it make on your music career after winning the competition?
Oh, okay. So the whole experience was just surreal. Like just being in the Apollo Theater, just to visit is a whole nother beast, because I don't know about y'all, but like I grew up watching like, Showtime and Apollo on TV.
Of course.
And so to actually like be there, like that was surreal, and like just see, they have everybody's pictures, and backstage they have this huge signature wall of all the, celebrities that have come through, and just to be able to like just lay your hand on somebody else's signature. Like I think I saw Oprah's signature. I saw Jill Scott, you saw the Roots, you saw, all these people's signature, and just to be able to kind of just put your hand on top of it and be like, just touching a little piece of them. It was like really surreal, and just being there in the history and seeing how beautiful it is. And on TV, it looks so huge, and it is a large space, but for it to be so large, it is super intimate. It feels like the crowd is like right in your face.
Like you can reach out and touch.
Yes, even with the lighting, because that's one of my tricks. If I'm singing in front of a large audience where I don't get nervous, especially like on a large stage, I play into the lighting, because you can't, normally on, being on center stage, you can't really see the crowd the way that they have the lighting, set. So it kind of just feels like you're singing to an empty room. Nah, not at the Apollo. It feel like you sing it in a living room full of people, because the intimacy of that space. So just being there was surreal. Ribbon the Tree of Hope was surreal. Just knowing that so many, important and just influential and legacy and all the big, wonderful words that you could use to describe the behemoth of talent that has come out of that place. It was just amazing, to be honest. It had an impact on my career, as far as I felt like if I could go there and do well, I could do anything and be in front of anyone, because they are, I say Columbia Church audience and the Apollo audience were neck and neck for the two most intimidating audiences that you will ever perform in front of.
So, were you nervous? Like, how did you like get rid of your nervousness and stuff like that?
Oh, you don't get rid of it. it doesn't go anywhere. People who say they're not nervous, I don't know what kind of nerves they have, but from the time you step on until the time you step off, I was completely like just rattled in my nerves. I mean, I had fun. It's almost like, you know, riding a roller coaster, doing something dangerous. It's like, I'm scared the whole time doing it, but I'm having a blast while it's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So like, do you have any like things that you do before you go on stage and say a prayer, you know, call someone or, you know?
I can't say that I do. Only thing that I can say is my husband was with me through every step of the process, because when we first started the audition process, I had I like to say a callback with Apollo. So one of my favorite singers in the whole world is Jill Scott.
Okay.
And I mean, I love her. She's my everything. She's my favorite singers. In my head, we're best friends, and she's my very vocal godmother. So, and like 2 years before I actually did Apollo in New York, I had a chance to go to New York and audition for Apollo. We were living in Raleigh. Long story short, went through all the rounds, got to the final round, and it clashed with a time where I bought tickets to see Jill Scott in Columbia.
Oh, wow.
And so the guy was like, I promise you, you're going to win this. I'm just telling you, I know you're going to win this. He was like, you just need to come and do this last performance, and you're going straight to Apollo, and I know they're going to accept you. And I was like, yeah, but I was supposed to go see Prince at Essence. I turned it down thinking I could see him again, and then he died. I'm going to see Jill. I've always wanted to see her. I got my tickets. I'm going. So he was like, I'm telling you, this is a dumb thing for you to turn down, but if that's what you want to do it. So turned it down, didn't go. Fast forward 2 years, my husband submitted a video of me singing with Jermichael Peebles. He's a local jazz artist, well, national too, but submitted a video. They picked it, and I was able to go straight with no like standing in the line audition. Went straight to them calling me and like, hey, your call time is like 10 on Thursday.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, yeah. So I was like, I got to meet Jill at some point in time in my life, because but no, so that was, I mean, that's how it went. And my husband has been with me. He was with me through that whole process. And so when we first started, I wasn't pregnant, but in between like the first and the second show, I got pregnant. And so I didn't tell them until like the third show. And so the showrunner and the producers were like, well, if you feel like you can carry through, just, go through. So the last, I think it was a 1, 2, 3. So the third round, where it was like the top dog competition, I was miserable. I was about 6-ish months pregnant, and I was miserable. And I was like, I placed third because it came down to a tie between me and this dance group. And I was just like, Lord, I'm tired. I'm okay if I go home at this point. And I was like, if I don't have to do this again, I've come this far, God. I'm okay if I go home. These babies are young. They're excited. I'm tired and I am pregnant. I don't want to do this. And sure enough, I won. And I was like, shoot, I got to come back. And so I had to talk to my OB and get clearance from him, because he was like, what you doing now? And I was like, look, Matthew, me and my OB on the first name. He's really good. And I was like, look, Matthew, I got to go to New York. And he was like, now how much you think you can win? I said, 20 grand. And he was like, if I let you go, you better bring it back. And I said, all right, Matthew, I'm going. So we went, and it was my 8th month. I was like 8 months and some change.
Oh, wow.
And, won the whole thing. But when I tell you I was tired. So, I mean, it was that whole process, even going through that was surreal, like being pregnant, having to fly back and forth from South Carolina to New York, taking the subway, trying to navigate downtown New York when you're pregnant and all that. I was like, Lord, if you never done anything else for me, you've done enough, and I'm tired. I'm good. So.
Well, that's good. That's good. That sounds like a whole journey. Like you're going to be able to tell your kids about that whole experience.
Oh yeah. I had my daughter like 3 weeks right after I won. I had her 3 weeks after it. She came a little bit early. And I always say it was probably because both of us was stressed out, but she got here. Right. She was like, look, I'm ready to go. Come on. You done had me up in the air, flying back and forth.
Right. That's a whole journey. I'm proud of you because they say it's a lot. You know, when people watch, you know, Beyonce singing, dancing, and do all that stuff when she's pregnant, it's a lot.
I don't know how she did it.
Yeah.
I've had the utmost respect for her. Like, I don't know how she did all of that, because just standing still, like I always say, I am Lee Williams when I sing. I don't be moving. I don't be bopping around. I stand in one spot. I sing my song and I go sit down. And I don't know how people who be singing and dancing pregnant did. Like, I was just standing still and maybe did a little two-step at one point in time. And it's, if you ever get a chance to go back and look at that performance, there's a part where I pause and everybody was like, that was so dramatic. And I was like, nah, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. Like, it was, you know, thankfully the musicians were talented and they caught it. And, you know, the sound engineer caught it and put some extra reverb on it when I came back. But so many people was like, that was so dramatic. And how did you time that out? And I was like, wow, that baby kicked me and I couldn't breathe and I had to catch my breath.
Listen, you have to meet Kevin's wife, Lisa, because you sound.
I know Lisa. We went to school together.
I went to Lisa right now.
I think Lisa's gonna like this episode.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, Skip. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think. Oh, yeah, this is definitely a good one, especially with that last, like I said, with that experience with this baby kicking on the stage. Because I watched the episode, I watched the performance night before last, and I saw. I think you were singing, was it "I Will Survive"? Is that the right? So was that the song?
Yes, sir.
And like, to me, I didn't know all this was going on when you were singing that. I didn't know this was going on with this baby. I did not know that. I was like, okay, she's doing the thing. Like, this is on point. I'm really impressed. But
she was still the whole time. She was really still the whole time. And like, she shifted towards that last little bit. And I was like, okay, girl, you here too. So you
guys brought the title home. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So the next question we have, and this one is more or less, I guess, has to do with, it's kind of like a bigger picture as far as like jazz from a cultural perspective. So, of course, we know that you have a passion for jazz music. And often, especially with our generation, we tend to associate jazz either with our parents or our grandparents. And sometimes many people, especially even on what part of the country you're from too, if you're younger and you're Black, to where we might not even associate jazz with our culture in general, which is kind of strange because, that's where a lot of our cultural roots come from, creatively speaking. And so one of the things that I love about watching your performances was being able to see people that look like me and that are the same age as me creating beautiful there are a lot of great younger artists making their name in jazz. And I noticed locally you have a lot of younger jazz artists too, vocalists and musicians. But I've always thought about it. How can I process it? It seems like historically as Black people, we've always created genres. And you know what I'm getting into with this, right? We always seem to create genres. So, you have jazz, you got blues, rock, all these things. But after about a generation or so, we tend to leave those things behind. And you can even see that now, even with hip hop to an extent, even with certain styles of hip hop or approaches to it. So it's sort of like our creativity is a gift and a curse in a sense. So in your opinion, do you feel like jazz can cater to a younger audience?
I feel like it really can, because like I said, my first exposure to jazz was school, like going to Keenan and like working with in the band department, working in on jazz band, like that was my first experience. And that was like seeing, it was cool to me to see kids my age doing that and, you know, learning how to scat or learning how to sing different jazz standards. And it was like, to me, and maybe just, we was all nerds, so we thought we was the cool kids. I don't know. But it was just cool to see, you know, my friends, my age group, like playing different, you know, like playing the sax and playing the trombone and playing different things like that. And like we stayed doing that through college. Like one of my good friends, and Lisa knows him, Stephen Mitnall, we went to, you know, high school together, and it would be like, we would go to Hunter and Gatherer right behind the State House where it used to be. And it would be a lot of like older people there, but it felt like it was so cool because we were like the young kids and they would let us get on the mic. That's when I actually did the last shed with Skip Pearson, like when he was, you know, hosting it during the time. And like I did the last shed with him, and it was so cool. It was like seeing, you know, the baton kind of being passed to other, you know, local artists. But I feel like what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. We create the drip. We create the sauce. We create the essence of what makes things so amazing. And I don't know if we necessarily leave it. I think we get pushed out of it to a certain extent. It's like, no shade to even some of the younger white R&B singers that are coming up. It's like sometimes we get so fascinated with other people, how other people can mimic us, that we forget we're the originators of it.
Yeah.
And we get so excited. And it's like, oh yeah, like look at them runs. And it's like, yes, I'm glad that Sarah figured out that she can do that with her voice and that she has a soulful voice. But I know about 3 other women in this church choir who can run her under the floors.
Exactly.
You know? So I feel like it's like you said, it's a blessing and a curse. Like we come up with the drip, we come up with the sauce, it becomes mainstream, and then it's incentivized, and we don't get the credit or the funds that come with it.
Right.
So I think it's a two-way street, because you think about like even here locally in Columbia, you have your black jazz scene and you have a white jazz scene.
Wow, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, they're two, and it's, I mean, and they intermingle. They're not completely segregated. Like they intermingle, you know, but there are 2 different scenes to a certain extent. And sometimes I feel like with any industry, when it comes to, you know, if you don't have the accessibility or the not even gonna say the accessibility, if you don't have the luxury to just say, okay, I'm going to go to school for this. I don't have to come out of college, you know, worrying about going into a field to support everybody in my family. I have the luxury to go to school for, you know, jazz, or not even go to school for jazz, or just do, you know, low paying events, get my chops up, you know, all this other kind of stuff, and not have to worry about the funds, because I got support to do that, to make my own way, versus people who have 9 to 5s because we got a family, we got kids, or even you coming out of school and you got student loan debt. You don't have that luxury to go off for, you know, a summer in Milan or somewhere else, you know, overseas sometimes. So I think that is another barrier for how we may not be able to, you know, finesse the bag when it comes to some of the stuff that we create, or we create it and it becomes mainstream. Like you think of like the TikTok dances and all of that.
Yeah.
All of those Black creators, like we created it. Yeah. But who gets the mainstream funding for it? It's not that we left it. It's just, we don't get the credit for it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I see it all the time, and people are starting to get mad about that.
I think we've been getting mad about it. It's just that we have a megaphone or social media to say something about it. I mean, even if you look at like back in the day with artists like Elvis Presley, like, bro, it wouldn't have been no you if it wasn't for some of those soulful Black singers that you copped your whole style from. Right. You know, and I think it's just something that's been happening. We just now have the megaphone of social media to say, I want my stuff back. Don't get up here, you didn't start that. I did, but it's been happening. If you look at all the genres of music, they've been taken from us in one way or another and putting their seal of approval on it to make it sound like, we've been doing this, but we know that ain't the case.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that we can kind of do, especially when it comes to, jazz or, just other music, other genres of music that we have, that we've created in this country, is doing a better job at connecting the younger generation with the older generation when it comes to that. So in what ways do you think artists or fans, just in general, just the community in general, could help bridge that divide through jazz?
I would say making it accessible to younger people in a way of where it's fun. It's not so rigid. Like, your jazz doesn't have to look like and that's one thing that kind of irritates me sometimes about not everybody in the jazz community is like this. So I don't want nobody tweeting me or bothering me. But it's like some people look at like the jazz greats and say those are the standards and you have to adhere to that. Your jazz isn't jazz, and if it's not like that. And it's like, y'all know these people just created this out of thin air. This, while it is a standard of how things are, how you play certain scales and do certain things like this, it doesn't mean that it has to be just like, Duke, or just like Basie, or just like, anybody else. Like, these people were creating this stuff out of thin air and just let people create how they want to create, let people do different things in jazz and just let them make jazz what feels good to them. Like, for me, I think a lot of young people think jazz and they think, smoky cocktail bar, elevator music. They don't think that jazz can be full of bass. It can be, you can put an 808 in jazz. You don't think that kind of stuff, And I think you have a lot of up and coming artists who, and not up and coming, but established artists. Like, I think of somebody like Trombone Shorty. Like, I love the way, the bass knocks and his stuff. And, it's jazz, but you can feel it in your chest.
Exactly.
So I think it's just exposing young people to things like that to let them know that, the possibilities are endless. It ain't got to sound like elevator music.
Right.
You could scat over a trap beat if you wanted to. It's just do it how you want to do it kind of thing.
Now, how do you classify your type of music?
I would say it's a mix of jazz and soul. It's a little bit of both because I like to say I have like two different personas. Like, I have the Mother Earth persona that a lot of people are familiar with, but like a lot of my new music that I'm working on is just about out. Well, the release date is August the 11th for the EP. So a lot of that music is a little bit more sensual, a little bit more sexual in a way. But I feel like I have two different personas. So like, I have the Mother Earth vibe that people get from me, but I also have like just a little bit more grown and sexy on the other end. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the things on my notes. I think you had a performance back in January, and I kind of got more of that louder, that grown and sexy kind of vibe from that.
Yeah. And I think it's also just been I've evolved myself because a lot of my start was like in church. And so, moving from the church scene and being a worship leader to like fully finding myself musically, it took a minute to kind of not cast that stuff aside, but just to find like my own unique individual voice and not, realizing like, girl, you 30 and some change, you grown, you done had 2 kids. People know how they got here. Like, enjoy yourself on stage, say what you want to say kind of thing. So.
Exactly. So back to we'll kind of stay at the church thing real quick, because I wanted to ask you this a few minutes ago, a couple minutes back. But I know you said the toughest stages you've been on or the toughest audience you met? Of course, we know about the Apollo, but why? Why is the Columbia church scene? Why is it so tough?
Right. Not just Columbia church, Columbia period. Like, one thing I say about Columbia is it prepared me for Apollo, because Columbia is so talented. Like, you can't go 2 feet without hitting somebody who can sing, who can play, who can, Columbia is talented. And I grew up in my home church is Bethlehem Baptist Church, College Place on Eastman Street. And I grew up just thinking that everybody could sing. Yeah. Everybody could sing, everybody could play, At one point in time, our church was known for just good music, like the adults, the kids, everything. And with that, with us being so saturated with talent in Columbia, it's like, if you get on the stage in front of people, they like, let me tell you something, you better sing. I will not part my lips until you do some vocal acrobatics over here. And, like I was talking to Mark Rapp about this, and he was saying, he's like, I do feel that when I come to like in front of Black audiences, he's like, not that I don't get my all in white, but he's like, when I'm with the Black people, it's like, y'all be looking like, look, like, like you got to come with it. And it's true, because we are so talented here in Columbia. We have so many talented and amazing singers. Like, I think about growing up listening to like Benedict Gospel Choir and Regina Skeeter, and like listening to her, and just, like, if I could just do half of what she's doing, I'd be okay. And going to like, musicals here in like the gospel musicals here in Columbia, and just hearing people, group after group after group after group shut it down. And so you can't step out in Columbia and think that you just gonna, have saying. Like, it is a terrifying audience, because they expect nothing but excellence. Because I know 2 other people who can outsing you in the audience, So. It is a nerve-wracking market, but it's good. It's a good proving ground. I would say, like, my experience with Shay Alexander here, she, runs Shay's Lounge, like, just she really gave me my start of like honing my own show. Like, what does my show look like for me? And so just working with her, and like just the audience that comes there, like they not playing when they come. Like, either you gonna bring your A game or you're not. And I've seen people who really thought they could do some things, and then they get out there and your feelings get hurt. Church and jazz. I would say that the kiss of death when you singing in church, to me, is that, okay, baby. All right, baby. Yes, honey. That's, to me, if you hear that, go sit down. Just sit down and try it again.
That's it. So I'm switching gears a little bit. Okay. I know creativity is something that's very important in family life, especially with younger children. It's a way to engage in meaningful interaction, to bond, and to create lasting memories. This is something that I'm becoming aware of myself. Do you share how, just your creativity and just your singing background, how has that benefited family life?
It has benefited my family life, and it has also made it chaotic. Okay. At times, working full time and also being a singer part time is, at one point in time, I was almost felt like I was doing 2 full-time jobs. It makes it hard when you have little people. But one of the best things, though, with having little people is sometimes, depending on the environment, you can bring them along. You can bring them to practice. You can bring them. And I think it's so cool that like my kids get to, I have pictures of like Charlotte sitting on TJ's lap playing the keyboard. Like, I feel like it's so cool that my kids get to experience, music in that way. Like they know, what drums do. They know what keys do. They get to be in the mix, and kind of, if they choose it, they've already gotten a good footing in the door as far as like knowing, how to run a rehearsal. I don't know, but just watching them to be able to play in a way, in a space where some kids never get to touch. Right. Exactly. And it's really beautiful to me. Like my daughter, everything's a microphone.
I mean, if she's in your stomach, you know, she's dead. She'd be the one.
Shot, everything's a microphone. We have instruments and all. Like and it's so funny. Like I know she watches what I do, but she will come in like my upstairs. I have like my own office and whatnot, and it's like a music room too. She'll come in there and pick up the mic and go la la la. I mean, just to singing her little heart out. I bought her a toy guitar. She is around here just jamming out. You know, she's singing and playing. So I think it's great that my kids are immersed in the arts in that way, and that they have, you know, cool stories and stuff that I think they'll have cool stories when they grow up to be able to talk about, because like practice time at my house is almost like family time. Like we cook, we do a big meal, you know, like I'm cooking for the band. My husband's cooking for the band. Like we eat, you know, we breaking bread. So I think it's good that they have that sense of like, there's family, there's music family, but all of it's family.
Exactly.
You know, so I think it'll give them a good foundation when it comes to like just their well-being of seeing, you know, Black creatives hanging out, having fun, you know. And I think that about all the kids that my friends, like my bass player Rodney, his daughter, when I would come to practice, she was a little girl. She would sit in my lap and I'd sing and she'd look up at me and I just rock her and sing. And, you know, so they get that experience and they get to, you know, like that firsthand of the art. So I think it's great.
Great. So I guess what advice would you give fellow creatives, especially those that are, because a lot of us are at that age where if we don't have a family yet, we're starting to have we are having families. So we have little ones coming up. So what advice would you give them as far as, you know, being able to incorporate, you know, maintain that balance?
Oh, Jesus, that's a loaded question. The last gig I was doing, I worked with like a corporate band sometime and we pull different musicians, and there was a little guy there. He's a little bit younger than me. He was talking about, you know, dating this girl and all that. And I said, look, bruh, do all the things you want to do now before you get them kids, because it's going to be 5 times as hard to say how you want to, you know, we in Charleston now. If you feel like having a few drinks and staying, you can stay. No, when you had kids, you got to take your tail home. So I said, do what you need to do. But I would say for those who are having kids and who are starting to have kids, take them kids with you. Invest in some good headphones, some good noise canceling headphones for them children, and let them children go with you, because, you know, they will get the experience, but also it's incorporating them into a level of family time. That's one of the things that before I was gigging a lot on the, like, back and forth to Charleston, Savannah, just really down in there doing their wedding scene and whatnot. And so me and my husband were like, okay, I'm a penny pincher when it comes to my, my gig money. I'm like, if I could drive it back, I'm not staying nowhere tonight. But for the sake of my marriage and to make sure that, you know, me and my husband were seeing each other at some point in time, we were doing things like, okay, if we're going to do a gig in Savannah, let's have a day in Savannah. Let's make it a day for the two of us. You know, let's hang out. Let's go to dinner. Let's do all the things that we could do while we're down, you know, while we're in Savannah, and make it a time instead of me just by myself driving to Savannah, gigging, and then coming back home, you know, 3:00 in the morning, you know, and I hadn't seen them since 10 a.m. that morning. Right. So, you know, just really as much as you can, take your family and take your kids with you if you're allowed, you know. Try to make it a family experience as much as you can, because it is hard if you're working full time and you're gigging on the weekends, because you don't get to see them as much as you would like to if you're really, you know, going out there and doing gigs and stuff. So try to incorporate them as much as you can. Okay.
So I know you mentioned something earlier. So is your husband a creative too?
He plays. I always fuss at him because I'm like, bruh, as much as I love TJ and I enjoy playing with TJ, I was like, look, sometimes I wouldn't have to pay somebody if you were practice mode. So no, but he plays the keyboard, but he is, awesome. he's going to yell at me if I get this wrong. Not in a bad way. I'm not in any type of situation. I don't want y'all to think he abusive. But he is he's a network and cybersecurity engineer.
Okay.
So he's into like the tech and IT. Like I said, he could be building bombs. I don't really know what this man does. But he's into that. That's what he does full time. But he does play. He used to play for AME churches and stuff like that. So he could bust out of him like nobody's business. But he ain't quite made it over into the blues and jazz sector yet. But, so.
Neat. Oh, one more. I know you mentioned performing at weddings. So how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for a long time. That was like my first foray into performing, like singing at people's weddings. I started doing that when I was like in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm at the point now, I like to say I'm not just a wedding singer, like I'm your music consultant.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm at the place where I've had a lot of experience. So like I'll get brides that'll come to me and like, I want this to happen. And now I know the questions to ask, like, okay, you say you want this 7-minute song to walk you down the aisle. What part did you really want to hear? Because in your mind, you thinking it's going to take you 7 minutes to get down the aisle. It's probably going to be about 30 seconds.
Right.
So what do you really want to hear? So now I know how to kind of ask those questions and kind of just curate an experience for your wedding that is like, what you really dream in your head musically. Because, there's a difference to what you think is going to happen and to what actually happens. People think, weddings are this long process. Most weddings, even your black weddings, are going to be about 45 minutes tops, and 45 minutes is a long time for a wedding. So, I've gotten a lot of experience in that, and it's one of my favorite things to do, to be honest, except when you get a real aggravating bride. But for the most part, it's one of my favorite things to do to kind of help people plan out their dream experience musically, because that is a big part of what people hear in their head. People, have been planning what songs they wanted their wedding since, they heard Let's Get Married by Jagged Edge in 2002. So, it's lovely to bring that part to life, as far as like what people want to hear and how to plan things. And with the experience just comes wisdom. So that's one of my favorite things to do is doing weddings, and especially the reception. I love doing a good party band. Even though I am Lee Williams, I can't get a party jumping. I ain't gonna be dancing, but everybody else gonna be dancing, so.
No, that's right. I know that's right. So, because I know right now we're about to get ready to finish up, but want to know, what current projects are you working on, and how can we find your music, and how can we support you?
Well, my current single is out. It's called Love Drunk. It's out on all music platforms, Apple, iTunes, all the good stuff. Wherever you find music, you find me there. Just pay attention to my social media page. My Instagram is Brittany T Sings. Nope, I said that wrong. That is my Facebook. You'll find me as Brittany Turnipseed. And the tagline is Brittany T Sings. And then on Instagram is Brittany Turnipseed Music. So just look for my full name and you'll find me on Instagram and I'm on Twitter, but I have not quite grasped the concept of Twitter yet, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but definitely keep an eye out. I'm working very closely with 7 Sunday, Dion Generette, his brand. Yeah. They're working on my release. So they're doing that for me because Sister Girl is a creative, but she don't always have direction. So it's better when you see somebody who's doing things well for them to just help you out. So I called the audible and I said, Dion, I need help. And so Dion is doing a wonderful thing. And just keep your eyes on him in Columbia. He is doing some awesome stuff. I call him Columbia's Don Cornelius because he's doing some great things, but they're working on getting my EP release. We're going to do a digital format and then we'll have like an actual live show coming up soon.
Okay, cool. So I was just about to ask about that because I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I had to be kind of, so with the last baby, I had to be on lockdown because I was with COVID and all that kind of stuff, but I got both. So I'm out here in these streets now, but so as long as Delta don't act up too bad, I'm still out here in these streets. So, definitely we're doing a digital recording on August the 11th. So look for that. And And then we'll be doing a live show subsequently after. So I'm really excited about that. I miss being in front of, folks and having my own show and whatnot. So I'm excited.
I'm excited for you, and congratulations with everything.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the title for this EP is called The Intro Focused. So I'm finally focused and got my ish together. I'm excited, just excited to showcase the work that me and my guys have done. They have worked super hard on making this EP awesome and just sounding great and everything. Like, we got some great features on there. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us know about it. Would you like to shout out anyone before we wrap this up?
Just my guys, my band. I call them the Happy Accidents because I'm a big Bob Ross fan. So I call them the Happy Accidents, but just my guys, like I said, TJ, Jay Rich, Rod Foster, especially, like I said, keep your eyes on Dion Generate with the 7 Sunday group. Also, my girl, Tiffany J, she one of the people that I definitely look up to. I definitely have to call her and call some audibles with her too and be like, hey, I need help. And then also one other person that I really like to shout out, who I call him my thorn in my side, but he's a good thorn. I already said his name was Jamichael Peebles. He's a wonderful artist here in Columbia, guitarist, vocalist. I call him Sensei Peebles because he's one of the first people to kind of just throw me out there and say, you better start doing what you need to do. So, but that's all my shout outs. And shout out to my, he gonna punch me if I don't say, shout out. No, he ain't gonna really punch me, y'all. Shout out to my husband, Carl Grooms. He is definitely, I wouldn't be able to do a lot of what I do without him. That man helps hold down the household when I'm not there. I can lead the kids with him. He cook. He, make sure he even dibbles and dabbles into helping to manage like my time and make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be. So without my husband, I couldn't do a lot of what I do. And I'm so grateful and thankful to have a supportive partner because everybody can't say that.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
So that's it for me.
We really enjoyed this episode, and thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Hilltop Glove podcast. I am Tamaya Allen, and Skip, thanks for this one. I enjoyed it. So you guys stay tuned. You can check us out on all streaming platforms.
That's it for today's episode of the Hilltop Glove podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hilltop Glove.
That's it for today's episode of the Hilltop Glove podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other platforms. Also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hilltop Glove.